I would say that that's the root of all music, even outside of
Fair.
digital music, is this idea of iteration. And it's not to say that a person in a vacuum that was exposed to no music couldn't come up with something decent, but I think that the core of it, that is how a human writes music, as well as learning and studying from people who have written great music before them, and music that really vibes with their soul, or if you believe in that. But I think that the way that AI and machine learning approaches it is different from how a human does it, and you could make philosophical arguments about the ethics of all that stuff, but it is at the core what a human does as well, is studying something that is good or that you like, and then mimicking it, and then doing a new spin on it. I would argue.
Welcome to Smolder, the Professionals Applied AI podcast. I'm your host, James Wagenheim, and today's guest, Will Mason, is a digital entrepreneur and musician. Today, Will touches on a number of key insights, including how all creativity has iteration at its core, and why, while AI can accelerate creative work, having a human in the loop is essential to success. We also dig into SEO and marketing strategy in the world of generative AI. This was an exciting and informative conversation. Will is a self-starter and an evolving AI expert who has pushed the boundaries of what's possible with today's technology and digital music. If you enjoyed this conversation, please hit the like button, subscribe, or find us on Patreon. Without further ado, here is Will Mason. Will Mason, welcome to the Smolder podcast.
It's good to be here. Thank you for having me, James.
Awesome. Well, I was looking through your profile and obviously super excited to talk to you because my brother-in-law, Ian, who was on the show recently, told me that I really should reach out to you. And you and I have something in common. I think we learned playing guitar around 15, which is I just kind of play a little bit here and there like anyone does. But I wanted to get a sense for your journey from playing music as a 15-year-old into getting into software and becoming an entrepreneur. So what's a sort of a short version of that?
Yeah, so I would say that the short version is that there was probably
doesn't have to be that short.
There's probably a 5-year window where I was taking music very seriously as like, okay, I want to try to make music and hack that as a career, which comes with its risks. And so that brought me to a point where I worked in marketing at Guitar Center. So I had a few jobs here and there, and none of them spoke to me. But the one that kind of stuck the most for a decent bit of time was the marketing role for Guitar Center, and specifically serving their music and arts and their woodwind and brasswind brands, which is where we have the mutual connection. Ian,
right?
I believe he's still going strong there.
Yeah, he's still at music and arts.
Yeah, so mainly serving that brand, and was there for a while and helped out a lot with, I would say, mostly coordination stuff and thinking about how to automate processes. And I would say my first focus there was email marketing, but ended up branching out in a lot of other things while I was there, like conversion rate optimization, which is kind of a lot of my focus now, are things that I think about are in that realm, which is, just for your audience, figuring out how do you maximize the number of people who are buying things on a website, which I think is a very important thing for pretty much any business. But I would say those are, in terms of the journey from music to where, a little bit before where I am now, there's that. There was a point where I decided from a lifestyle standpoint that I was going to move. They wanted to keep everybody in the office, and so there was kind of a disconnect there.
It happened to a lot of people.
Which, it's really funny because my boss and a lot of the people on the team were remote. So it was kind of this funny thing where it's like, okay, so I guess I'm going to leave then. So I left, and then started, at that point, I kind of really leaned into Music Made Pro, which is a business that allows people to change the lyrics of a song and make it sound like the original artist. So that was kind of the main revenue stream that worked. I tried a lot of things, just for the record. That was not the first thing that I offered. So that kind of got me into okay, I'm on my own and I'm kind of making money on my own, not relying on somebody else's business. And so with that, I kind of naturally ventured into, okay, how do you programatize this and make it a software or like a web app? And that's what Change Lyric is, which, I'll be completely honest, it's a little rough around the edges and is not for everybody. You have to have some production experience to use it. I'm working to fix that. And so I don't know if I think that was as short as I can make it in terms of catching you up.
That's fantastic. And it hits on a lot of the topics that I wanted to dig into today. And I guess this is a question that I had made an assumption that you might feel this way, but maybe that's not true. So feel free to push back. But I guess what about interacting with music digitally sort of resonates with that first experience of learning guitar?
So for me, I would say the production side of it. So there was a point where I got really into self-producing and trying to make my own things. I was never, I would say in terms of a lot of the stuff that I released artistically, I was never, in hindsight, I was never actually that good at it. And now I'm probably just being hard on myself. But to me, I loved, well, love's a strong word, but I was intrigued by that process of how do you take ideas and then refine them and polish them into a final thing that's consumable that people enjoy listening to, which AI music as a concept within the last 2 years has radically changed, and I think is going to continue to change what that looks like for people. And a lot of people hate the hell out of it and are not a fan of how it was, the process of how they went about curating, basically stealing all of the music and then training models on it, which I can understand that, but genie's out of the bottle. China's going to do it whether we do it or not.
Right.
Not to say that it's right or wrong. It's just, that's kind of how it's going to be. Right. So that's maybe getting a little bit ahead of myself. But for me, the production side of it, for me, I loved playing guitar, but there was something about like the final product for a lot of people is like, watching a music video or the production or the media side of it. It's not just about the guitar playing. It's the how do you capture audiences with media that's really good. Yeah. So that was my intrigue, I think.
Yeah. And when would you say well, I'm assuming the introduction of generative AI in the space of music and video and sort of like non-text related media, was that a really exciting transition for you?
I would say I think so. Yeah, I've always been very intrigued by it. This is going to be me being kind of a hipster here, but there was I'm going to do I did it before it was a cool thing. But it was in 2020 before OpenAI came out with ChatGPT and that got really big. So it was in 2020, I made a course on, it was one of my ideas, that one of the things that I was trying in that soul searching period before I actually left Guitar Center. But it was a course on how to use how to use AI to create music. And it was very primitive, like compared to what making music with AI is now. I don't know why my brain keeps switching that. Compared to what it is now, it was kind of like, we're going to use this clunky plugin that Google made and is mainly for developers. So there was a point where I guess I've kind of realized I was always interested in it, even before a lot of the newer stuff came out, but it's been exciting for me.
There's an element that seems to stand out to me that sort of is a consistent thread with digital music from the very beginning, which is always sort of this take existing little clips of music or generate your own and then innovate and come up with a new song or a new riff. And that seems to be there right from the beginning of digital music. Would you agree?
I mean, I would say that that's the root of all music, even outside of digital music, is this idea of iteration. And it's not to say that a person in a vacuum that was exposed to no music couldn't come up with something decent. But I think that the core of it, that is how a human writes music, as well as learning and studying from people who have written great music before them and music that really vibes with their soul, or if you believe in that. But I think that the way that AI and machine learning approaches it is different from how a human does it, and you could make philosophical arguments about the ethics of all that stuff, but it is at the core what a human does as well, is studying something that is good or that you like and then mimicking it and then doing a new spin on it. I would argue that right now humans are still significantly better at originality. If you listen to the things that AI music platforms do put out, yes, they sound very refined and they sound good a lot, especially Suno's latest model. Yeah. Very good. If I listened to a song on that, depending on the genre, I would not be able to tell that it was AI, even though I listen to AI music every day. I feel confident that if there's a person who could tell the difference, I would be pretty high on that list. Yeah. Some of the newest stuff is very good and I would not be able to tell. But that being said, I think the originality that comes out of the human heart or whatever it is, maybe it is, I'm not exactly sure what it is, but I think that humans are still more creative in terms of it, being able to do what you're saying and making something that is truly original and feels fresh.
Yeah.
So we do have that edge still.
That directional and taste edge.
Yeah, and I think that part of what comes with that, though, and I think this is maybe an interesting thing to bring up, is that a lot of what makes something sound creative and good might be bad to a person, where it's like, oh, well, this doesn't sound like what I listen to on the radio. So, like, as an artist, you're kind of always fighting that battle. And this is pre-AI, is this idea of like, oh, well, I have to make my stuff sound like what everybody else's sound like so it fits in to this mold. And so that trade-off has been there long before AI was a thing. And I think that it's only going to become stronger now, where it's this question of, well, just because it doesn't sound like everything else doesn't necessarily mean that it's bad. Right. And maybe people's tastes will adapt because of AI. At least that's kind of what I hope, is that there will be a change in taste from maybe not the pop music market, but there's going to be markets of people. There's going to be pockets of people that's music taste is going to change. And hopefully in that direction where it values that human creativity.
Yeah, it does seem like in some ways AI generated music reminds me a lot of my history of rock and roll class, and when they were talking about all of the producers that were just pumping out sort of stuff that sounded like any black artist they could come across that was really innovating in rock and roll. And they just had a ton of artists just making pantomime versions of really beautiful rock and roll songs that were coming out of the black community. And so in a lot of ways, this sort of like iteration of music that any of us could generate on the fly sort of seems like a shortcut to the type of things that was happening back then. And I think you could argue that has similar exploitation type vibes to it. Yes. But I also agree with you in that real innovative music and new and novel music that doesn't sort of sound like everything else, that moves the genre forward, I think is not something that's just going to be sort of pantomimed out of this AI tool.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's probably a sweet spot where I do kind of believe that in the not too far future that the artists that are going to be the most successful are likely going to be people who are able to tread that very carefully and know when to use elements of AI and when not to.
Right.
So there's like a curation aspect to it maybe, where I think that the people who are just generating the same thing and not putting any thought into it are eventually I think people are going to find them out. Where it's like, okay, yeah, I know that you generated this and it sounds exactly like this other artist that did it better in the first place.
Even in looking at some of the AI slop, I don't know if you've seen sort of like the TikTok trend that's Bird Game 3. Have you noticed that one?
Sounds awesome.
So it's like a fake game that somebody generated using like VO.
Okay.
And the gameplay is really remarkable, and it's like, oh man, I want to play that game. It's really entertaining. But I think it's really important to remember, like, the person that generated that came up with the concept. And if you've used any of these tools, you really have to force them into the arena that you want this message or video or whatever song. You kind of have to corral them into something that's really interesting and spectacular. And so immediately you're like, oh, yeah, this is AI generated, but someone came up with the inspiration for this.
Yeah.
And that's what's sort of cool about it.
Yeah, I think it's you're absolutely right that I think that a lot of people, and this is a problem that I've run into with like evaluating the pricing on my services or products or whatever, is that a lot of people assume that if it has anything to do with AI, that AI like ideated it, came up with all of the structure of what it is, and it doesn't matter what type of media or program or what it is. As soon as somebody gets a whiff that any type of generative AI was used, there's kind of this sentiment that it's AI all the way down, which is absolutely not true for the vast majority of the things that are getting successful. A lot of it is there's a person concepting something or not to. It's a more
working really hard to get it to where it's something that you can consume.
Yeah, or that people actually think is funny or enjoy or are willing to pay money for. AI is, in my experience, very bad at understanding what a finished product is. Yeah. And if you don't believe me, go to Gemini's. They're really impressive. It is really impressive.
Yeah.
But like Gemini 3, if you go tell it to build you a full RPG video game, that's good. It's not going to do a good job. Like it's going to be crap. It's not going to be something that people would pay money for.
Right.
So yeah.
It's certainly good at like the novelty. Like it creates a novelty. If you want it to be something valuable, it requires a lot of work, just like it always has.
Yeah. I mean, I would say that the amount of work, depending on how you approach it, could be significantly less. I think that there's a lot of potential, and I've been experimenting with agentic things where you trigger one thing that does a lot of sub operations, and then it gets you closer to that finished result a lot faster. So I think there is absolutely a lot of potential to use it to speed up workflows, but I think the core of it, and I think the core of all of it, is taste and being able to look at the end thing and say, does this suck? Because if you're able to do that and you're able to say it's not good, then you're able to go back to the drawing board and like refine it. And that's the work. That is like the real work that you're talking about, is iterating, because usually you don't do it right on the first try or the second.
So you're writing software now?
Yeah. So I would say that is a big shift in my focus is, and a lot of it is just vibe coding, where I'm not like I mean, my dad was a programmer, so I have started with some basic coding knowledge, but yeah, a lot of the stuff that I've been doing has been programming, specifically, mainly in like the web app, I'd say Python and then web app territory, where it's because for me, my focus is like, it's never been easier to create web applications for other people.
Yeah.
Even as somebody who doesn't know a lot about it.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of where my head's at, is how do I take these specialized things that I know about and then turn them into things that other people can use and do find valuable. And you can use Claude Code or Gemini or a lot of these new tools to help you do that.
Yeah. Well, just what would you say is your favorite stack of tools when it comes to delivering some of those web experiences?
Yeah, so I talk about this on MuseMouth, or I think I published a blog kind of recently talking about the stack that I like. And it's similar to, you'll see a lot of YouTube videos where they use a similar stack. I'm going to try to just go down the list of things that I think is good, because there's a lot of it you could switch it out for other stuff because it changes. That's the crazy thing about all of this is 2 weeks ago you could come up with an idea and then it can be made irrelevant or not necessarily as good in a 2-week window when these new tools are coming out. But yeah, I would say I use Next.js and Vercel, and then I use Supabase for database stuff. My main thing that I'm using for vibe coding is Claude Code. I honestly think it's insane, and I think that people who use Claude Code or those terminal-based AIs are gonna maybe rule the world in the next 10 years. The amount of stuff that you can do with them is insane.
It's amazing.
So I would say, I mean, Claude Code or Gemini has a CLI. So either of those. I'm probably missing some stuff in here.
Well, that's all right. I'd say that's a great list.
In terms of delivering a web experience, it's good. I would also recommend not letting an AI build your entire code base from scratch.
Right.
I would recommend using a boilerplate if you can find one. There's a lot of free boilerplates. And I know I'm probably going because I know that this isn't a developer podcast.
It is intended to be like an applied AI podcast, so I think we can get in the weeds for sure.
Yeah, and this is something where it's, once again, I am not a software engineer by trade. Yeah. Now, the cool thing is that I do have software engineer buddies. I have multiple friends who are doing that professionally, and I've told them my stack, and they've looked at it, and there's things that you can improve, but generally that stack that I mentioned, you can go a long way with it. Last tool that I will say, and this is one that honestly, when I showed it to them, none of them had ever used it for anything. It's kind of newer, but it's called Modal. it allows you to use Python to fire up GPUs and run open source libraries or any library that you can get your hands on. So I basically use that to do machine learning functions in the back end. So basically it's all to say, if you're interested in trying to chain different AI functions together that aren't talking with each other right now, like that's kind of the approach that I would take, and the approach that I'm taking with a lot of stuff.
Yeah, I haven't heard of Modal, but I certainly have heard of the rest of the items on your stack, and those are super. I've liked all of those. I'm curious, like, have you played around with Replit, and Cursor, and some of the ones that are more IDE focused or have like the ability to just build a web app soup to nuts, that sort of thing?
If you're I would say use Cursor if you know what the hell you're doing. Like if you're a software engineer, I think Cursor would probably be a good option for you. And I think for me, I've just kind of found the sweet spot with, generally it's just faster for me to say in plain text and plain English what is wrong with it. And so I've found that Cursor is cool, and I think that it has a place specifically if you're, I think mainly for software engineers. In terms of Replit, I haven't tried that. I've tried Manus to build stuff, and Manus is really cool. I've built landing pages with that.
Sure.
And not that Manus is a direct competitor with Replit. I think I tried Bolt for a little bit there. For me, I like being able to have control over everything, where you get pretty much maximum control with the stack that compared to using something like Bolt or Replit. I think you get a little bit more control. Yeah, there's not going to be as much hand holding, but for right now, I've found that I prefer that.
Great.
Yeah.
Well, I have a similar feeling when I'm using these tools, especially when, I don't know if you use OpenAI's ChatGPT very much, but they went through a release where it used to be that you picked your model for every conversation, and then they sort of tried to backburner that and do an auto version. Immediately, I had a strong visceral reaction to that, because I can just see where they'd optimize away from the best possible answer that I'm looking for at the time. Totally makes sense, I think, from their perspective, to not be firing up a ton of GPUs just to ask like what's the temperature outside. Yeah. But I tend to want to be able to manage all of the knobs, and so I totally resonate with the idea of getting in the command line and working in plain text. I think that's a really pleasant experience. For me, I use Cursor more as like a project browser more than anything.
Okay.
Or if I hit a rate limit in Claude, then I'll go over and use it up there. So I have a similar kind of experience, it sounds like.
Nice.
But that's really neat to hear how you've sort of really fully embraced web development. And I guess, would you agree that that's sort of like something AI and generative AI has really enabled, as someone to just dial up and get a new skill set really quickly?
Yeah, I mean, I would say I kind of look at it the same as, I would never call myself a software engineer or a web developer. Like I would just like the people who say that they're musicians that generate music with AI. It's a similar thing where it's like, no, you're not a musician. Sorry. Like I would say it's a similar thing, but for me, it's about the end result and measuring, like, if I release a thing that makes money in it, or like, I think for me, the first proof of this was I built, because I originally launched Music Made Pro on Shopify, which has it has a lot of good stuff, but for what I was doing specifically, it was very limited in terms of being able to let people put in the right information and make the workflow for delivering the thing easier. And so the first proof of this was, okay, I'm going to build a custom embed that I'm going to put on the site that improves conversion. And over the course of the last couple of years, I guess like the last 2 years, I've increased conversion like 10x'd it with just building out your own thing and embedding it. So I think that was kind of like the first proof of concept, is like, okay, I don't need to know exactly how to be a software engineer, but if I can launch something that doesn't get hacked and increases ROI, then great. Which I think that's kind of the big thing a lot of people are worried about with vibe coded web applications is how do you ensure
They're safe.
How do you ensure that they're safe? And it's funny because I've talked to a lot of my friends who know more about it, and they're always like, man, even at big companies, they're not secure. Like the amount of security violations is honestly not to say that. Yeah, I mean, the goal is how do you make it as secure as you can while you're vibe coding it. I would recommend if anybody's doing it to like read up on it and learn about, okay, well, how do you make sure that it is secure? Mm-hmm. And a lot of the times the AIs have gotten very good at knowing like, oh yeah, you shouldn't just like put an environment variable here, or they are good at warning you usually like, oh yeah, you shouldn't do this. Yeah. But yeah.
Well, I saw this really great meme where it was just, I think the caption was something like software developers reviewing AI code. And it was just like a security guard letting people onto the train. And they was just like lightly brushing people as they walked onto the train, just sort of like pretending to check them for guns or whatever. And I do think that even in an enterprise environment, there's a lot of that happening. So
we've had a lot.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I don't know if it's related, but there's been a anomalous amount of outages and errors happening at these big tech companies.
Oh, like at Cloudflare, for example.
With like Cloudflare or at AWS, and they're not gonna like get out on the podium and be like, yeah, we released a bunch of But it is suspicious where it's like,
it is suspicious.
Maybe. Yeah,
maybe. It's so funny. I had the same thought. I was like looking at that meme, just thinking that really we are going to have to rely on these tools to have guardrails in them and our settings. And actually, I think where you come from, marketing is a really good place to start for thinking about some of the impacts for risk. I mean, obviously, being a software engineer with full stack knowledge, you do have probably a little bit of a better view initially. But I think as a marketer, you really understand how to reach people, how spammers would reach you, and also how a form could be vulnerable to like injection attacks and those sorts of things. So do you think marketing has given you some of those skills, or are you picking it up as part of your development journey?
I mean, I think marketing is more, I would say that marketing might be more important than software engineering as like a basis, because if you don't know how to talk to people or write copy, I feel like copywriting is a big one. And AI is certainly pretty good at copywriting, I think, at this point, especially if you just give it like, here's like the top 10 books on copywriting, write my stuff so that it sounds like this, which I have done that before. But yeah, I think that the marketing is a good foundation for all that. So are you asking, has marketing helped my software development?
Helped you think about making your forms and like the tools that you're releasing to help improve your conversion? Has it helped you make and think about making those safe?
I don't know if being a marketer helps you think about making, because as a marketer, you're at least from my experience being a marketer, it's like, let's just get the form up.
We can.
Well, I don't care about the law. I don't care about security. Okay. Yeah, as a marketer, that's all. That was kind of always where I came from. Is it was always a war with IT or legal.
Yeah. Okay.
So as a marketer, I would say no. I think the goal as a marketer is like, how do you make the form as easy to fill out and as dummy? How do you make it? Because people, I'm not going to get started on that, but you want to make it easy for people because that's good.
Yeah, that's a good point. So all these concerns around safety are really potentially creating barriers on the front end for the end user.
Yeah, I mean, potentially. I think a lot of the times no, but yeah, I would say that the security stuff is something that's surfaced as more of a thought after entering this world of software and like web development type of stuff. I did have a incident where, and this was kind of my first learning lesson, where I had one of my buckets for Supabase was public. And then I woke up one day and there was just like 1,000 videos from somebody. It wasn't the same. There was like multiple people in India that were using it for cloud storage. It was just like, it was like 2 days after I had pushed it. I was like, man, how did they even know? Like, where did that even come from? So yeah, I got a little bit of a taste there. So yes, if you're vibe coding stuff, watch out.
Awesome. Well, maybe, I don't know if I've given you enough time to just sort of talk through about what Change Lyric and Music Made Pro is. Do you want to just talk about that real quickly?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, with Music Made Pro, do you want more of a history or just what it currently stands as?
Well, I'll give you the option.
Yeah, so, okay, I'll do a quick history and then current state. So Music Made Pro, originally I was offering more like song production type of stuff where it's just like generally I'll help you do an original song. Then I kind of pivoted to, okay, when AI voices came out, I was like, okay, I'll help you make a song with whatever voice you want to feature on it. And then at some point somebody asked, it was on the chat website, or it was an intercom type of thing where somebody was messaging like, hey, can you do this? They were asking to have the scene in Full Metal Jacket where they're singing Happy Birthday and then changing the lyrics. So that was the first customer experience where I was like, okay, somebody wants to change lyrics to songs. I kind of ignored it at the time. I was like, oh, well, I can't do that. That's not possible.
Yeah.
Then fast forward a few months, I realized like that's the thing that's in demand. That's what people actually want.
Right.
And so I kind of retooled the website to go in that direction. And yeah, that's kind of what the main value offering has been on the website for the last couple of years. And so the idea is you give us any song and then we can change the lyrics to say whatever you want. And sometimes that can be very challenging, which is why it does kind of have a premium price tag.
Yeah.
A lot of people are like, oh, this is AI. Like, why should I pay this much? But it does take a lot of production work and like experimentation on a lot of the projects to figure it out. Which is why the main clientele is businesses, and then secondarily weddings and people doing high-end gifts or personalized gifts for people. So that's what Music Made Pro is. And then, and I think the main takeaway for your audience there would be listen to what people are asking for. I would say take your shot on your idea or whatever your idea is, and then get a customer list and then listen to them or like email them or like talk to them on there'll be indications like what you're offering isn't good enough, or like, I would rather have this other thing. So that would be the takeaway there. And then Change Lyric is more of me obsessing over automation and trying to automate something that maybe I jumped in a little bit too early on. But I think that recently I did have an idea where I might be able to do it better and make it a lot more user-friendly. So I've been experimenting with that actually just within this last week. So with Change Lyric, the idea is that you're a music producer, and at least in its current state, you're a person who has audio engineering experience. You produce music. You need to change lyrics to a song while maintaining what the original sounds like.
Yeah.
And it basically lets you generate new vocal stems with a debatable level of success. It is very, with any of this generative AI stuff, there's a level of randomness and
Yeah, of course.
where they're not completely deterministic.
Quantum fluctuation.
Quantum fluctuations, if you will. So yeah, it's definitely something where it's for producers. It has a high churn rate right now because people expect it to generate the full song for them, I think, in a lot of cases, and it just doesn't do that.
Yeah.
But maybe with enough grit and determination, I will make it do that at some point. Or some tech company will decide that they want to do it first, and then that'll be that. But
well, I just sort of had the question. I was browsing your sites. Were you having to train any of your own models? Were you launching your own models? And that kind of goes back to Modal. Is that
yeah, so I've gone through a lot of like way too much experimentation, but I think that's what being I kind of consider myself a modern inventor, where I think about the Nicolas Cage quote, the Nicolas Cage quoting Thomas Edison's quote, 1,000 ways he didn't invent the light bulb, he found 1,000 ways not to invent the light bulb. So I think that there's a lot of truth in that when you're trying to make something that somebody else hasn't done. Because like, yeah, if somebody had a lyric swapping open source library or something available, sure, I would just download that and use it, but nobody has made that. And so I'm kind of taking that on myself to try to figure that out, or figure that problem out. It's a difficult problem. There was a point where I tried chaining together a bunch of open source libraries in order to do it, but and there is some extent where that's still happening with what's going on now. But I would say in terms of like right now, it's using multiple APIs and multiple open source libraries that do what it does. I'm losing my train of thought here. So
well, I think it's still your recipe that you've pulled together. And I 100% agree that getting to a final product requires those 1,000 misses. And
Yeah.
that seems like you're on the right track to producing something really novel.
I think I am close, actually, where I think I'm closer than I thought I was a couple months ago. But I think that to answer your other question in terms of have I trained things, I did fine tuning on a model. I tried to use A-step and then do some fine tuning on that model, but I was not successful in that experiment, or for whatever reason, I wasn't able to improve it meaningfully in the way that I needed to. And I also realized through that experience that I do not want to be a machine learning engineer at all. And so I realized, like, I already am doing a million things and I already have like a million interests. I'm just going to say I'm going to leave machine learning to the guys
side.
who do it. Yeah, I'm just going to say that's where I draw the line. That is a line right now.
Nice.
But I have experimented with it, and it's very difficult, and I understand why they get paid a shit ton of money.
Yeah. And oftentimes they have a lot of resources at their disposal, and that helps a lot too. So
yeah, for sure. Where it's, if you, Meta's a good example where it's like, all right, give us all the machine learning guys. We'll pay them all $1 million salary or more.
Or 125 million.
125 million.
Meta.
That was, wow, it was that much. That's
well,
insane.
it was sort of like almost like a bounty hire. I don't know if they actually did it, but they were advertising, and there was a joke on Hard Fork that they were basically advertising how bad it was to work at Meta, that they were having to do these like NFL football signing bonuses to get anyone to come work at Meta.
Yeah, and then they fired. I saw that they were firing a lot of people. I don't know if it's those people that got hired in that round, but it is that their PR has not been very good on the job stuff within the last couple of years.
Definitely. Well, I am curious. So just to keep pulling on that thread a little bit with those two endeavors you've got going, what are some of the human touch categories versus the AI touch categories when you're sort of producing the final result?
For Music Made Pro, in terms of
either one, either Change Lyric or both of them.
So I will say another thing that that's kind of indirectly been something that I've gotten, I think, good at in the last couple of years is search engine optimization stuff. So thinking about like, how do you write blog content that ranks well, or how do you write video scripts that rank well? Not so much on the video side. I've been more focused on like the written content stuff, but I think that there always has to be a human touch at the end, for sure. Where I think that if there's one touch point, if you're gonna use AI throughout a process, always have a human at the end of it, because it's just unpredictable. And right now it's just depending, like across any domain, it's just not good enough for you to trust the final result usually without iterating on it. In terms of Music Made Pro, in terms of doing these lyric changes, we're using AI to do vocal separation. So it's like I'm using AI,
distill it into like tracks or something like
where
that.
you're using a machine learning based tool. I shouldn't use AI for everybody uses AI to describe everything, but
you can use it.
Yeah,
we're very liberal on this podcast with our language.
Yeah, it's like using a machine learning trained thing to split out tracks, and then using other machine learning tools. And it's not the thing that's interesting is that it depends on the song, where there'll be different processes depending on what works. A lot of the times, my instinct on what will work, or the team, I have a couple of people who help me with them. Our initial instinct will be wrong, and we'll have to end up using some other strategy on a song that we wouldn't. So there's an unpredictability to it, for sure, where one strategy does not work every time. And we use, I would say, 3 different tools, including Change Lyric, to accomplish the goal.
Very cool. Very cool.
So that's the other way that I know that Change Lyric is at least not a complete waste of time, is because I use it regularly for the stuff that I'm doing for Music Made Pro.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, I feel like it sort of makes me want to ask the question, do you have an exit strategy for either of those or both of those?
You mean in terms of selling it, or just
do you think, I mean, I think
detonating?
Just listening to Change Lyric, I mean, I do think you're doing something really special. Do you think that's something you would market as an overall business, or are you hoping to continue to just create a great product?
I mean, my goal is to refine it until the end goal is anybody can go to the site, put in the new words that they want, and then get something that sounds good. And maybe they pay a few dollars for it, or they pay whatever amount makes sense for the machine learning costs and paying for the company, and enough to make me a filthy rich billionaire. No, I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. Only a little bit, but I think that
that would be nice.
I know Change Lyric won't make me a billionaire for sure. The numbers don't work, but I do think that I've been obsessed with that concept, and I'm gonna keep on trying. If somebody offers to buy it, I'm probably not against it. I haven't really thought about it too much because I know that it's not where it needs to be at that point, and so there's no point worrying about it until it kicks enough ass to have Warren Buffett asking about it. Nah.
Well, I guess, did you set out to build these two businesses with an idea in mind? Or I think you touched on this a little bit, that you sort of went in one direction and then pivoted. But did you sort of have a North Star with these when you started?
Change Lyric, yes, because I was building it off of demand that I found somewhere else. And so
Right.
Change Lyric's like, I know what the end result is. I know what the North Star is. The end result is probably getting in trouble with some tech company or with Disney or something like that. But to me though, I think that I don't like that policing of content that where I think that a person should be able to change lyrics for their friend that has cancer or for like their birthday or whatever.
Yeah.
To me, that's what I think about is there's been a
Feels
lot
like
of
fair use.
There's a lot of projects I've done for people where I was like, damn, that's a nice thing to do for somebody. And I think that it's cool I think that everybody should have that right or be able to do it. Obviously, if you're making money on it, then yeah, that becomes a lot more of a question. But the vast majority of the people are using it just to do something fun or like make their team happy or cheer somebody up. So it's
You've kind of scoped it to personal use when it comes to leveraging existing songs. Is that right?
Yeah. So I mean, like from a legal standpoint, that's kind of on all of my copy everywhere is this is for personal use. Do not use it in advertising. Don't make money with it. Because if you do, you're definitely legally in the wrong there.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of it also, when I think about where I've gone with all this, even before I had the ideas of Music Made Pro and Change Lyric, everybody has that moment where you're just singing really stupid lyrics to a song where you're changing it. Like you turn the radio on and you sing some bastardized version of it with your friends that's funny to you.
Yeah.
And I think that being able to bring those to life is a cool technological thing that I would like to be a part of. And I'm sure that a lot of people will have mixed feelings about it, but me personally, I think it's cool.
Yeah, and I want to get into some of the philosophical questions in a second, but I just want to point out too that folks like OpenAI's Sora and some of the other platforms, they were sort of blatantly putting in Disney characters in their videos, and obviously that they had a bunch of companies go in there and say, hey, you can't use this stuff directly. It said it to them. But it is interesting that like a lot of these really big companies don't have any scruples around going and pushing the limits of fair use because they just have such vast resources when it comes to managing privacy issues or content issues. So it is just kind of interesting. Like we have a bit of a double standard, I think, when it comes to the rules around content, and it's mainly to protect these really big content generators and not the individuals that want to send a nice card to their friends. So I really appreciate what you're doing. And then also I just curious, like, have you paid attention to some of that stuff coming out around their use and have you had any thoughts on that?
Yeah. I mean, I stay very up to date because a lot of the tools, I haven't used a lot of the video stuff as much because I think that it's, a little bit harder to wrangle. I have had some ideas for using it for creative things that I might like to try, but yeah, I mean, I think that in terms of Disney suing Midjourney or people getting mad at OpenAI the thing that was funny about OpenAI's launch with Sora was that they knew that
Yeah,
they were
knew it.
breaking the
Of
they
course.
knew that they were breaking the law, and I'm sure they had that internally as a plan where it's like, okay, we're gonna let people generate whatever the hell they want to for like a week and then turn it off, but just to get the word of mouth and the viral publicity of the whole thing. But yeah, I think I definitely am keeping up with all the lawsuits with getting sued. They're the music generator, Studio, which they've both kind of been at the knee, and I think are playing ball with the record labels that sued them. So I would expect a lot of changes on both of those platforms. And in terms of how I feel about it, like, are you asking how I feel about it morally or the practicality
more
of
just
it?
kind of looking at the difference between how some of these really large companies can operate versus like somebody's smaller in the space and focus on personal use. Like, do you see a little bit of double standard there?
I think the truth is that whoever makes money gets sued. So
Yeah.
like, if once I make enough money, I'm probably gonna get sued. Like that's how it works.
Yeah.
I think that's the practical result of the whole thing.
Yeah.
What in terms of the moral usage of like, oh well, should the person who originally ideated Barney get a cut whenever OpenAI generates an image of Barney? I don't know, but the reality is that they probably aren't going to in the future of all of this, because what ends up happening is when all of these companies like Claude or OpenAI or Midjourney put these rules about what you can and can't generate, and I have personally done this where I go to figure out, well, who's the Chinese equivalent of this that doesn't have any rules about it, and then you build whatever you need in that place. And the thing that's so funny, and I might be out of line, and I probably shouldn't say this on this podcast, but like, you can build things with Claude that make it so that you don't have to follow. Like, Claude has moderation rules,
Right.
about like replicating lyrics. You can build something with Claude that does what Claude does with another Chinese equivalent LLM,
Right.
and then so I think from like a practical standpoint, all of the rules that these companies are going to put in place from legal pressure are just going to result in mass user exodus to other tools that exist outside of the United States or outside of the rules that exist.
Yeah.
And so it's the kind of this like infinite Wild West problem where no matter what laws happen or what companies do, it's just kind of going to be that way, where it's just content theft all the way down.
Well, it isn't sort of interesting to me that like if you were to take an image from one website and put it on your website, like it would be really highly unlikely that you're going to get a lawsuit. Or if you copy a big chunk of text and you put it on your website, that's just sort of been there from the beginning of the internet. I mean, I think it would be one thing if you were OpenAI and you were claiming it as original content, but if you're just publishing it on your website, like that would be, I would think, be considered fair use. I don't know, but I do think that these models are sort of like a compression of the internet and the content that's been there. Obviously, some of them have sort of run afoul and actually been training it on content that's behind copyrighted firewalls and things like that. But I've always sort of like had internal conflicts around things like patents. I've done some work with patents in the past with products that I've invented within companies, and then also just copyrighted material in general. And I mean, I think where I come down on it, and I really would love to hear your thoughts, is that we still have to find a way to be able to support artists.
Yeah.
And it's got to be a practical solution, and I'm not exactly sure what that is. But also, I don't think we should be stunting creativity by trying to make everything about a lawsuit and trying to make it so restrictive that you can't just pivot on and build on all of the artwork that's been come before you, which is sort of how the process has gone since the beginning of time.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's interesting that you bring up the patent thing, because I've talked about this with my uncle he has a lot of patents as well. He's a physicist. He teaches physics at UCLA, and we've had conversations about this where it's, and I think there is some overlap with the arts as well in that concept, where it's spending a lot of your human time figuring out how to do something that nobody else has done. Yeah, the scope of that might be greater for patents in a lot of cases than it might be for artists, but it's a similar concept. I think I agree with you that in an ideal world, the people who invent things and create art should get paid for them, and especially in a capitalist system where you're forced to live in this capitalist system, and in theory you should get paid for the value that you create in that system. But I think what AI is going to do, maybe not the specific version of AI that we have now, but I think the collective, where it's all going in my head from a trajectory standpoint, is that the value of novel art goes to zero, whether it's music or like physical art or patents, because you can't enforce them. And it's interesting, the patent thing's funny too, because even with patenting something, it's first, in a lot of the cases about patents, you can patent something without actually knowing how to make it in the first place and sue the person who actually invents the thing.
It's kind of ridiculous.
So it's always been bullshit anyway.
Yeah.
But it's going to be even more bullshit with AI, I think. I don't know what the answer is.
Yeah. Well,
but
there is sort of patents, one of my favorite ones for like looking at this use case. It's sort of, I think it's called the wearable computer. And there's a guy who's sort of famous for starting in 1970 and wearing this computer around, and he had some like glasses at the time that were like almost like early AR, if you could call it that. And that patent, which he just basically strapped a computer to his side, and it wasn't like he had really done anything. He just put it on with a strap. But that patent extends its tendrils into like all kinds of stuff, like whether you're making a GPS collar, there's just, it's insane how many things that you could sort of fit under that initial patent. And you get to know like really quickly, like this is really a weird game and it doesn't really make a lot of sense.
The thing that does make sense about it is, it goes back to what I was saying, is once you make a lot of money, you get sued. Somebody to sue you.
Right.
So I think that that's kind of how it falls out. I think that this is me going a little bit sci-fi utopia cuckoo, but I think that the next 50 years, I wouldn't be surprised if universal basic income or some variation of it has to happen because of the things that we're creating and taking away and effectively in that system, the artist you're just inventing things because you're interested in them, or you're creating things because you're interested in creating things. Does that ever actually materialize? I know I sound like a commie right now, but
no, I mean, I think that's an idea that's going very mainstream in the tech community for sure.
Yeah, where I don't know if it actually practically works, but I think that might be what the end result might have to be for humans to not end up rioting in the streets.
Yeah. Yeah. It's super fascinating. And I am also sort of in the camp that we're going to have to come up with some means to compensate for all the work that's being automated away, and recognize that all of the effort that went into making that possible was generated by the people whose jobs you're pulling away as a technology.
Yeah. But I mean, I from a practical standpoint, I take the stance that I'm preparing for the scenario where that doesn't happen, and my goal is to use AI and leverage it in a capitalist way to make money with it.
Same.
And I mean, I think that's where everybody's headed, most of the people that are talking about these types of things, that's kind of where everybody's head is how do I use this to like get my last bite in before everything blows up.
And I'm not so confident that it will blow up. I think there's a chance that taste is always going to be, at least for the next 100 or 50 years, something in the domain of that humans own, because humans are the ones consuming it. And so it'll be really important and hard to replicate. And I could think even in a pop artist environment, we like stuff that is created by humans. We like watching people play chess, even if a computer is better at it, to be frank.
Yeah. No, I 100% agree with that. I just think that when it comes to capitalistic outcomes, I just don't know what that looks like in the future, how those things all balance out. I think that's kind of the takeaway there.
Well, that's good. I'm gonna bring us back to the practical world again, and I guess
no more.
No, we'll come back to that too.
Uh,
I guess I just wanted to ask you the question of when you're working through building out Change Lyric or Music Made Pro, what were some of the obvious limitations that frustrated you the most in the process? Because there's a lot of promise in the AI world, and I'm curious, like, where did you beat your head against the wall the most?
I would say the biggest thing that AI, so it's gotten much better even in the span of a year or two of using it, where before there's little things like having to copy and paste everything out of the actual web UIs, which has kind of been solved with the command line type of interface, where there's a lot less copying and pasting than what had to happen when I was initially starting to experiment with the tools. I would say the thing that AI struggles with from a software perspective is state management and queuing logic. For some reason, it's very bad at keeping track of like, oh, this is the pipeline of what happens in the web application, and this goes here, and these are the states of these things.
Like, in other words, it can't keep track of the steps that to bring something to completion.
So if you think about most web applications that are machine learning based, it's going to be something where the user gives you some information or data, you do something with that, and then you give it back to them.
Yeah.
And so managing the pipeline from beginning to end, for some reason, AI very much struggles with the logic of that, at least in my experience. And I think that's because there's a lot of options for ways that you can do queuing, like cron jobs, and a lot of this is terminology that I'm still like learning myself. But in terms of like state management and queuing and managing the project from beginning to end, it just really struggles with it. The only way that I was able to get around it was making kind of like doing like a manifest where it's these are the steps that happen in this application, and here's my rough idea of how you should do it with these tools, and making it very clear, like, I don't care if it's the most efficient thing in your head, you're going to use these things. Yeah. And then
it loves to get distracted.
Yes. And then the other thing is yelling at it a lot, and just
you
being
use all
like,
caps?
Yes, sometimes I do. Or
Wow.
I know that I don't know if it's actually a good strategy or not, but I did kind of yell at Claude my way into getting it functional. So I don't know.
That might be good. It also might be harboring a vendetta against you, so I would watch out.
Yeah, I mean, if the AI overlords take over and they're like, oh, who are like the mean people, I would be on that list. Like, I'm definitely getting terminated for sure.
That's awesome.
But I mean, I'm nice to it sometimes. Like, when it does a good job, I'm like, oh yeah, that's actually crazy that you were able to do that. Sometimes I do talk to it like a person, even though I know it doesn't.
Yeah, same. I say thank you.
Yes, sometimes I will say thank you, but usually I'm not very nice. I would never treat I would never talk to a human employee the way that I talk to AI. We'll say that. But yeah, I would say that's a thing that it struggles with. I mean, I think that from a language standpoint, so a lot of people are using AI for writing copy. I have kind of my own like 1,000-line manifest that I pretty much give it for any time it's like writing a blog post or it's writing copy that's customer facing. So I would say just have your own list of rules, and as you read through things that suck, like try to build out your meta prompt for how to remove those things, and over time I have found that improves it.
What's an example?
An example, like, I mean, it could be little simple things like occasionally misspell one word just to make it seem, because that I think that
generated.
adding giving it reference copy for like something that you have written so that it knows how that you sound. Giving it like there's a thing called a dependency language framework where I actually don't remember what the exact rule is, but it's just like basically I'll just read on the internet and keep track of like, well, what are ways that people are improving? And I just like kind of keep that as a little notepad somewhere, or like you can keep it in Google Docs or whatever, and then just add to it over time, and you can test it and see if it actually improves it or whatever. But I think that doing having that meta prompt that you're injecting past what Claude naturally does help. I know that people say that prompt engineering is dead or whatever, and yeah, that might be true. Eventually Claude might embed things that are basically the same rules that you're giving it anyway, but at least in my experience, I think
Yeah.
that the building out context, it's more context engineering than prompt engineering, I think, if you're for the result that you're trying to get. So yeah, I think
Well,
that's
have you heard about the Soul doc from Claude, the latest version? Oh, I think it's
no.
Opus 4.5. So they just released a document that was acknowledged by the Anthropic team to be part of Claude's training, and it's just basically huge context documents and sort of presents like what Claude should do, shouldn't do, what its primary objectives are, blah blah blah. Yeah, which I'll post a link in the notes here. But I sort of went the other direction than maybe what people are saying around prompt engineering, which is prompt engineering is still very relevant, or context engineering is really relevant, and understanding how that affects the outcome. I think, like you're saying, I actually think it has a huge impact on performance.
Oh, I mean, I would say that if you tried to build change, like if you went to Anthropic or if you went to OpenAI and you said build change lyric,
Yeah.
it will not be able to do
it. Yeah.
And that's because of context. Where if it had the code base that I have, then maybe it would be able to.
Sure.
But I think I had to go through many sessions of context to get it to where it is. And yeah, I think there's absolutely no way that if I was just prompting one shot with just like, here, do this thing, and then I didn't give it context, that I would be able to do even close to what I've been able to in terms of the software stuff. And I think in terms of the content writing stuff as well.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up, because one of my big questions for you was, what do you think that search engine optimization will mean as AI just becomes sort of the dominant way to interact with online content?
That's a hard question.
Yeah. And don't worry, I didn't really expect us to be able to come up with an answer, but I'm curious what you think about that.
I mean, I think that the end result most likely is, I'm thinking about this from like an individual company's perspective, where it's like, I want to get traffic on my website.
Yeah.
I think the end result is that you have to think of how to build tools. I think mainly tools, actually, because interaction and building, you have to think about things that are hard to make. And I think it's about competitive advantage, where it's like, instead of writing a blog post, instead of like going to OpenAI and saying like, write me a blog post on this topic, and then like pasting the HTML into something and not giving it any context, which is what everybody's doing right now, where it's like, okay, I want to generate a blog post on the top 5 ways to change. If you were competing with my business, I'm imagining this is how a newbie would approach it. They're going to go to OpenAI. They're going to say, write a topic on this, not give it any context, and then just throw it in there and throw it on the site. And so the difference between that would be if I actually have a tool that does it, or I have some like interactive thing that was more difficult to actually build in the first place. I think it comes back to just game theory and economics, where it's, you just have to do the thing that nobody else can do, or is way harder than what everybody else is doing. I think that that's the end result of search engine stuff, where it's, how do I make something where it's not information based necessarily, where the AIs have to send people to your website to get the thing that they want.
Yeah.
I think that's the sauce, if I had to guess.
Yeah, so I like that perspective. I mean, I'm still trying to think, like, what's the modern way of letting the internet know you have a storefront, whether it be digital or otherwise. I mean, obviously all the old tools exist, which are go onto Google, set up your business, blah, 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 give it your site map. But presumably that stuff is going to become relegated by the chatbots. And let's say you do have a tool that's really novel, interesting, no one's used it. What would you say to someone who started there and wants to get that in the hands of people?
Yeah, I mean, I think that I think that traditional blog content still has a place. Like I've written things recently for Change Lyric that where I was able to get them to rank very quickly.
Wow,
just
cool.
doing like traditional search engine optimization stuff, where it's, what are the questions people are asking about this thing, and trying to find keywords that are not as competitive. I think that at least right now, traditional search engine stuff still works, and a lot of the AIs use a similar framework to determine if your site's worth sending traffic to or referencing. So I think that traditional search stuff still applies. But yeah, I would probably, I think a content strategy is good. And if you can build tools or interactive experiences around whatever it is you're trying to market, those would be the things that I would be thinking about. And how do you use AI to do that? Because AI can help you with all of those things. AI can help you write things. It can help you create videos. It can help you write code. Like, how do you use AI to make really good experiences that other people aren't doing? Like whether it's blogs, videos, or interactive content. Does that make sense?
That's great. Yeah, no, it makes a ton of sense. Yeah, I mean, I guess I'm sort of visualizing a almost highly saturated internet, which has a tremendous amount of generated content.
Yeah.
And would you say that people are going to have to be much more vocal with their generated content to get that placement, or is it more of I guess what I'm hearing you say too is like going back to traditional techniques is focus on the long tail, see where you can find keywords that are maybe not as competitive, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah. I mean, I think that I'm actually going to share my screen real quick.
Okay.
Give you a little bit of an example here. I think, let me try this. Are you guys able to see that? You able to see that?
Yep. Looks great.
Okay. Yeah. So I think I'm just going to give you an example of like, this is a blog that I wrote for Change Lyric. Now it probably could be optimized in various ways, but there's just so many things that this is doing that a newbie, like if you started a Shopify site or you started a Wix site and then you went to OpenAI and you just pasted in whatever the result is, where you have this nice table of contents, and Google cares about these website search. They care about these things where it's like, do you have like a table of contents? Do you have a reader bar? Does it actually provide value and talk about something that nobody else is talking about? And this is all AI written, but the difference is that I'm giving it like this list of 1,000 rules, and I build out a website like in a blog that follows all of Google's best practices as best I could, right? So I mean, I can go like to another example, but I think that taking the time to think about technical SEO, if you're going in that direction where you want to like rank and get people on your website, use AI to help you what technical SEO things to do, whether in a lot of the out of the box stuff like Shopify, and I don't want to necessarily recommend Squarespace, but they do have things that can help somebody who's new, depending on what you're building, do. They have a lot of the built-in technical stuff. But I mean, you just have to go above and beyond what the average person is going to do with AI, I think. Because like this article is ranking well, and a lot of the other AI generated articles I've written have ranked well. You just have to do more than what the out of the box AI would do. So I think that would be my explanation to somebody who's trying to write a blog. Now, obviously, like that's not even starting with video, where it's like you could turn that blog content into a video. You could, at this point, I would probably advise against using too much AI in your videos, because you're gonna some people, because a lot of the time people can tell it's not. Even like the newer engines, it's just like that it's AI. I would definitely advise setting up a camera. It doesn't have to be simple, like white background, green screen, whatever, and then just being you and talking about whatever value you're trying to bring to the table. Over generating AI video, probably. If I was guiding the strategy, that would be my approach. Does that? It's the world of search engine stuff and like content optimization is a big jar of worms. I'm doing my best to try to pick little things that I think are good or important. But did I answer your question somewhat well?
You did. So I feel like in summary, a lot of the same principles apply, and you can use AI to maybe get there faster, but you're going to have to think about how you're using the generative tools and the context that you're giving it to give it good advice and steer it in a direction that is going to actually yield good results.
Yeah. I mean, I think that that's the thing, is you got to use it to elevate what your output in terms of content, because at the end of the day, that's really, I mean, you have ads, right? You can go the advertising route, but I honestly, I have mixed feelings about that. Like if you're starting out as an entrepreneur, there's almost 100% chance that you running Facebook ads isn't going to work.
Yeah, I know.
Realistically speaking, and it was funny because I got that advice. I heard that advice for the first time when I was at Money Map Press, which is a company that sells these financial info products that are, I would argue, a little bit morally questionable, but some
Well, that
people...
seems perfect for Facebook.
Right. So yeah, they were running advertisements on Facebook. That was a great place for them to run ads, but along with Bing has a slightly older leaning population. But setting all that aside,
I didn't know Bing still existed.
yeah, I know, but it does, and it is good for certain target audiences. But yeah, it was the first day we were there. He was like, "Yeah, you guys think about marketing, but you don't." And it was doing like that whole routine. And at some point in the thing, he was like, "Yeah, and if you ever are starting something out, never ever use ads as your starting point." And at that point, I kind of didn't believe him. And there was like a 5-year period after that where I was like, yeah, like if you have the right idea and you run the right ad, it's gonna work. But in my experience and in talking with other, I would say there's like 1 in 20 maybe that actually have success with testing a product with Facebook, just like starting with advertising. My advice would be to start with content or talking to people.
Right.
Like where you build the audience organically and then find out what they want, or you talk to real people that you meet in real life.
Yeah, that's good advice. I mean,
because
seems
Facebook,
like you have to have a tremendous budget if you're gonna get a sustained and predictable any amount of traffic that's going to show up that you could come up with a conversion rate.
Yeah, I mean, and there's
Startup
people
doesn't have that.
There's people who have done it where there's probably examples where somebody does like a budget of like $100 a week or every 2 weeks, and then is somehow able to get it right out of the gate. But there's a lot of optimization stuff that happens with advertising that a lot of the gurus don't tell you.
Yeah.
Where your first round of ads is probably not going to be very optimized, and you're going to have to burn through a lot of money figuring out how to optimize it. And Facebook and Google are very good at taking your money without
giving you any value.
Yeah, like don't expect them to be your friend. If you're ever running ads, like have third-party tracking set up to measure what they're doing, because in any of the jobs I've worked at, there's always been like a pretty big discrepancy between what they report you're doing and report what you're selling, and where if it came from them. There's always a discrepancy there. Yeah. So watch out, they're not your friend. And they're probably going to be even more not your friend when they start doing AI generated content where everything's just on autoplay and there's nobody actually reviewing anything. And it's just like an AI video of Bigfoot holding up your product. And yeah, so I would watch out. Just be careful if you're running ads.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, we're running pretty close to the end of our time. And I just wanted to ask you real quickly, like, what is most exciting and what are you looking forward to in the next phase of AI tools? Is there something that you really want to be happening or you're looking forward to?
I mean, I'm really excited to see content that people create. I think that the filmmaking world is about to change a lot. I think I'm excited to see independent films that are good. Now, because everybody associates AI video with the slop stuff that you see on Reels, but I really do think that, I think it'll be cartoons first, where I'm looking forward to seeing like the first successfully made and actually good AI cartoon. I think that there's a lot of really cool content use cases and entertainment use cases for it. That's one place that my head's at. In terms of me personally, if assuming that Change Lyric, I'm going to keep improving that as I can. I think that I'm very interested in improving self-solving capabilities for AI, where it's like, how do you make it so that it can launch its own GPU containers to improve itself? Like, to me, that's a thing that I've been wanting to experiment with, where it's not necessarily the super intelligent self-learning thing, but to be able to go out and find, oh, here's this open source library that does this thing well that I don't know how to do. Yeah. Being able to trigger that and launch it, like that's an experiment that I want to work on in the next year. If not as a product, just as something that I can use myself, where I can, because so many of the ideas that I have rely on this core idea of connecting existing things that other people have made and orchestrating that. And I think that that's kind of the next step of a lot of these AI agents and in applying AI in a way that's useful, is being able to make it so that any person can have an idea and then deploy that idea without knowing a lot of the technical things that are happening underneath of it, where it's like, where the extent of what they have to know is like, I know that these 4 libraries exist and they do these things well, chain these things together in this way, and it'll help me in my work, or it'll help me in my art, or whatever it is. So I think that that's what I'm excited about.
Oh, well, that's awesome. This has been a really great conversation. And Will Mason, thank you so much for your time. And thanks for joining the Smolder podcast.
Yeah, it's been awesome. Been a lot of good conversation, and I appreciate you having me on, James, and looking forward to the next one.